The desert wind howled like a ghost through the cracked windows of the roadside diner, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and distant rain. It was just past midnight in the forgotten stretch of highway between nowhere and regret, where neon signs flickered like dying stars against the black sky. Olivia Ramirez wiped down the counter for the third time that night, her hands raw from the cheap bleach, her mind drifting to the stack of unpaid bills hidden in her apron pocket. The diner was empty, except for the hum of the ancient fridge and the occasional rumble of a semi-truck barreling past. She was 28, with calluses on her soul from years of serving coffee to drifters and dreams to no one. But tonight, something felt off, like the air before a storm that never breaks. As she cleared the last booth, her foot nudged a crumpled napkin under the table. Curiosity pulled her down. She unfolded it, expecting the usual litter of a lonely meal. Instead, a Polaroid slipped out, its edges worn but the image sharp as a knife. It showed a man on a weathered Harley, his leather vest patched with the emblem of an old riding club, a roaring eagle clutching a broken chain. He was broad-shouldered, mid-40s, with a scar tracing his jaw like a map of forgotten battles. Beside him stood a woman with kind eyes and two kids, one clinging to his leg, the other waving at the camera. They looked happy, unbreakable. But scrawled across the bottom in red ink was a single word, Target, and below it coordinates that pointed straight to the edge of town. Olivia's heart slammed against her ribs. She glanced at the diner's security camera, its red light blinking lazily, then back at the photo. The man in the picture, Ethan Hale, she realized, reading the faint inscription on the back, ran the local garage, the one where bikers from across the state gathered like old soldiers at a reunion. She'd served him coffee once, seen the way he tipped extra for the single mums working the late shift. But this was no accident. A hitman had sat in her booth, left this behind like careless trash. Her hands trembled as she pocketed the photo. In that moment, amid the greasy smells and the weight of her own quiet life, Olivia made a choice that would ripple like thunder across the parched land. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was the spark that could save a family from the shadows. Ethan Hale gunned the engine of his bike as dawn painted the horizon in bruised purples, the vibration rumbling through his bones like an old friend's handshake. He'd ridden these roads for 20 years, ever since the war spit him out broken and swearing off the world. The Iron Oath MC wasn't just a club. It was the promise he'd made to his fallen brother in a foxhole halfway across the globe. Protect the ones who can't protect themselves, no matter the cost. That vow had pulled him from the bottle, given him Sarah and the kids, built a life from scrap metal and stubborn will. But lately, the shadows had lengthened. Whispers in the garage about a developer eyeing their land, corrupt suits in the city hall pushing bribes like candy. Ethan shook it off, focusing on the road ahead, the cool bite of morning air against his scarred knuckles. Back at the diner, Olivia clocked out early, her shift forgotten as she slipped into her beat-up sedan. The photo burned in her pocket like a live coal. She drove toward the garage on the outskirts, the coordinates etching a path in her mind. Why her? Why now? She'd lost her own brother to a senseless street fight years ago, watched her family fracture under grief. Maybe this was redemption's quiet call, the kind that doesn't shout but pulls you under. As the sun crested, casting long shadows over the rusted chain-link fence, she spotted Ethan's bike parked out front. He was under a truck, tools clinking, grease smudging his forearms. She hesitated at the gate, the weight of the Polaroid grounding her. "Ethan." Her voice cut through the morning quiet, tentative but steady. He slid out, wiping his hands on a rag, his blue eyes narrowing with the wariness of a man who'd seen too many ambushes. "Do I know you?" "Olivia, from the Midnight Fork Diner." She held out the photo, her pulse thundering. This was left in my booth last night, by someone who shouldn't have been there. He took it, his face hardening like forged steel as recognition dawned. The family shot, last summer's picnic innocent as breath. The red word hit him like shrapnel. Son of a... He trailed off, scanning the edges, the coordinates matching his home address. Sarah was inside with the kids, oblivious, starting breakfast. A chill ran down his spine, not from fear, but from the clarity of purpose it ignited. This wasn't random, it tied back to the land deal, the threats veiled as progress. "You saved us," he said finally, meeting her gaze. The words hung heavy, a promise unspoken. In that garage, amid the scent of oil and possibility, Ethan saw not just a waitress, but an ally forged in the fire of chance. He'd call in the club, the Iron Oath Riders, who'd sworn the same vow he had. But first, he had to get his family clear, vanish into the wind until the storm passed. Olivia nodded, the adrenaline fading into resolve. "Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone." She didn't know the full weight of those words yet. The rides through dust-choked canyons, the moral reckonings under starlit skies, the redemption that would bind strangers into family. But as Ethan pocketed the photo and fired up his phone to warn Sarah, the first thread of loyalty wove tight. The hitman's mistake had lit a fuse, and in the world of broken promises, this one was about to burn bright. The day unfolded in tense fragments, Ethan bundling his family into the truck, Sarah's questions met with half-truths and a fierce embrace. Olivia lingered at the garage, her sedan a sentinel as club members trickled in. Grizzled veterans with tattoos mapping their scars, eyes sharp as switchblades. They gathered around the photo, murmurs rising like engine roars. Ethan traced the scar on his jaw, a reminder of the brother lost, the oath renewed. "We ride for what's right," he said, voice low and unyielding. "No more waiting in the dark. By noon." The plan took shape. Not vengeance, but justice, the kind that exposed rot without becoming it. Olivia, unexpected guardian, offered her diner's back room as a safe house, her own past fueling the fire. As the sun climbed high, baking the earth, the group dispersed with nods and grips of hands. Ethan watched his kids play in the yard one last time before the horizon called. The photo, a talisman against the coming night. In the quiet that followed, Olivia drove back to the diner, the coordinates haunting her rear view. She'd crossed a line, stepped into a story larger than her shifts and struggles. But as the engine hummed, she felt the pull of something ancient, honor, the promise of standing firm when the world buckles. Little did she know, this discovery was just the beginning. A spark that would draw hitmen from the shadows and test the bonds of chosen kin. The road ahead twisted with ethical storms and silent sacrifices, but for now, a family breathed easier, thanks to a waitress's steady hand. Word count 872. The afternoon sun beat down on the Midnight Fork diner like a relentless interrogator, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage that distorted the horizon. Olivia pushed through the screen door, the bell jingling a hollow welcome, her skin still prickled from the garage's oily chill. The photo was gone, handed off to Ethan like a hot ember, but its shadow lingered in her thoughts, a faint red smear on the edges of her vision. She tied on her apron, the fabric stiff with yesterday's spills, and scanned the empty booths. The place felt smaller now, exposed, as if the walls had ears tuned to whispers of trouble. Behind the counter, she poured herself a coffee, black and bitter, the steam curling up like secrets escaping. Her mind replayed the morning, Ethan's eyes, steel blue and grateful, the way the club members had nodded at her, like she was one of their own. She'd never ridden a bike, never felt the thunder of a convoy under her feet, but in that moment something shifted, a quiet alliance born from her brother's ghost, urging her to stand where he'd fallen. The diner's clock ticked past 2, each second a reminder that the hitman's coordinates weren't just numbers. They were a countdown. The door swung open with a gust of hot wind, and in strode a man who didn't belong, tall, slick-haired, in a button-down shirt that screamed city money amid the dust. He slid into the booth where the napkin had been discarded, his eyes flicking over the menu without reading. Olivia's stomach tightened. She approached, notepad in hand, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What can I get you?" "Coffee. Black." His voice was smooth, too polished for these parts, and as he leaned back, she caught a glimpse of a tattoo peeking from his cuff, a coiled serpent, not the eagle of Ethan's club. He glanced up, holding her gaze a beat too long. "Quiet day, huh? You see much traffic out here?" She poured the coffee. The pot, trembling slightly in her grip, steam rising between them like a veil. "Enough to keep the lights on." Her words were careful, measured, but inside, questions swirled. Was this the one? The careless lever of photos? She kept her face neutral, wiping the counter as if it demanded her full attention, the rag moving in slow, deliberate arcs. He sipped, eyes never leaving her. "Heard about some trouble at the garage down the road, bikers causing a stir?" The question hung casual, but Olivia felt the hook beneath it, sharp and probing. She shrugged, turning to the fridge for cream she didn't need. Folks come and go, nothing out of the ordinary. But her pulse raced, the photo's target echoing in her ears. This man wasn't here for pie. He was fishing, testing the waters she'd already stirred. As she set down a napkin, clean this time, she decided to play it bold, a waitress's intuition guiding her like a compass in fog. "You from around here? Don't recall your face." A smile cracked his features, thin and insincere, just passing through, business. He slid a 20 across the counter, more than enough, and stood. "Keep the change." Light as he left, the door banging shut behind him, Olivia exhaled, her hands gripping the edge of the sink. The coffee cup he'd used sat abandoned, lipstick-free but marked by his prints. She bagged it carefully, a makeshift clue for Ethan. The diner, once a refuge, now felt like a stage, every shadow a potential player in the unfolding drama. Miles away, Ethan guided his truck through the winding backroads, Sarah in the passenger seat, clutching the kids' hands, their questions a soft murmur against the engine's hum. The air inside was thick with unspoken fears, the scent of fast food wrappers mingling with Sarah's faint perfume, a reminder of normalcy they clung to. "Where are we going, Daddy?" his son asked, wide-eyed from the back. "Somewhere safe, buddy. Uncle's place up in the hills." Ethan's voice was steady, but his knuckles whitened on the wheel. The photo burned in his vest pocket, a talisman of betrayal. Sarah squeezed his thigh, her touch a silent vow. She'd been his anchor since the war, pulling him from nightmares with quiet strength, their family the redemption he'd chased across deserts and doubts. But now, corruption's tendrils reached for them, the developer, Harlan Voss, whose empire of strip malls and false promises had clashed with the Iron Oath's stand against selling their sacred ground, the old airfield where fallen brothers were honored. At the club's hidden outpost, a weathered barn tucked in a canyon's embrace, the riders assembled. Noah, Ethan's second-in-command, a wiry veteran with a limp from the same foxhole promise, spread a map across a scarred table. The air smelled of aged wood and gun oil, though no weapons were drawn. The oath fought with truth, not lead. "Coordinates match your land, Ethan. Voss's crew's been sniffing around, buying off the sheriff's deputies. This hit? It's to scare us quiet." Ethan nodded, tracing the lines with a calloused finger. The scar on his jaw itched, a phantom from that final patrol where he'd sworn to his brother Jake. "We protect our own, no matter what." Jake hadn't made it home, but the club had become the family he'd died for. Olivia's tip saved us the bullet. We owe her. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. 20 strong, tattoos gleaming under the slanting light, filtering through cracks in the roof. They weren't outlaws, they were guardians, bound by loyalty that outlasted rust and regret. As dusk fell, painting the canyon walls in deep ochres, Ethan stepped outside, phone to his ear. Olivia answered on the second ring, her voice a mix of fatigue and fire. "You get your family clear?" "Yeah, and we dug into it. That photo's from Voss's inner circle. You spot anyone suspicious today?" She hesitated, the diner's neon buzzing in the background. "One guy asked about the garage, left this." She described the cup, the serpent ink. Ethan's jaw set. It was a lid, fragile but vital. "Stay sharp, Olivia. We're coming your way at first light. This isn't just my fight anymore." On the line, miles apart yet linked, she felt the weight of his words settle like a mantle. The diner closed early that night. The sign flipped to closed under a sky bruising with stars. Olivia locked up, the keys jingling like chains breaking, and drove home through the cooling dark. Her small apartment, cluttered with faded photos of her brother laughing in better days, offered no comfort. She lay awake, the moral compass spinning. Had she invited danger to her door? But in the quiet, the pull of redemption whispered louder. Loyalty wasn't chosen lightly, but once given, it forged unbreakable bonds. By midnight, Ethan gathered the riders around a low fire, flames crackling secrets into the night. Stories flowed of past stands against greed, of promises kept that mended shattered lives. Noah raised a flask, toasting the waitress who'd become kin, for the oath and the ones who answer its call. Ethan stared into the embers, the photo's coordinates a map to justice. Voss thought fear would silence them, but the iron oath rode on honor, a convoy against corruption. Tomorrow they'd ride to the diner, collect their unexpected ally, and unravel the shadows threatening their world. The road ahead promised ethical tempests and silent sacrifices, but in the heart of chosen family, no promise broke. Word count, 878. The first light of dawn sliced through the canyon like a blade, gilding the barn's weathered planks and casting long shadows over the assembled bikes. Ethan Hale stood at the edge of the fire pit, the embers from last night's gathering still smouldering faintly, their smoke twisting upward like unanswered prayers. The air carried the crisp bite of pine and dew-kissed earth, a brief mercy before the day's heat clamped down. 20 riders from the Iron Oath MC revved their engines in unison, a low thunder that echoed off the rock walls. Not aggressive, but resolute, a symphony of loyalty forged in silence. Noah clapped Ethan's shoulder, his limp barely noticeable in the adrenaline's grip. "She's waiting. Let's make this count for Jake." Ethan nodded, the scar on his jaw pulling tight as he swung onto his Harley. The photo, tucked safely in his inner pocket, felt heavier now, a relic of the vow he'd made decades ago in the dust of distant sands. Protect the innocent, uphold the oath no matter the storm. Sarah and the kids were hidden deeper in the hills, at a safe house run by an old club ally, a nurse named Grace, who'd patched more than wounds in her time. Their goodbye had been wordless, just a fierce hug and eyes that said everything. As the convoy rolled out, dust billowing in their wake like a veil of resolve, Ethan led the way toward the Midnight Fork diner. The coordinates from the photo, now a roadmap to reckoning. Miles away, Olivia Ramirez stirred sugar into her coffee, the spoon clinking against the mug like a metronome, counting down to uncertainty. Her apartment was a modest nest above the diner, walls papered in faded florals and shelves lined with her brother's old comic books, their pages yellowed reminders of simpler laughs. Sleep had evaded her, chased off by the suspicious man's probing questions and the serpent tattoo that mirrored warnings from Ethan's call. She'd bagged the coffee cup as promised, sealing it in a ziplock with the precision of someone piecing together a puzzle from fragments of her past. Her brother Lucas had died in a brawl over nothing, greed-fueled fists that left a family hollow. This felt like echoing that loss, but with a chance to rewrite the ending through quiet courage. She descended the stairs as the sun crested, unlocking the diner with hands steadier than she felt. The place hummed with morning routine, the percolator gurgling, fluorescent lights buzzing to life, the faint scent of bacon lingering from yesterday's close. But today, it wasn't just a job. It was an outpost. Olivia wiped down the counter, her eyes flicking to the window every few seconds, scanning the empty highway for the roar of approaching salvation. The moral weight pressed on her. Had she dragged innocence into her stand? Yet the pull of redemption, that ancient thread of honor, anchored her. She wasn't running, she was holding the line. The rumble hit first, a distant growl swelling into a symphony that vibrated the diner's windows. Olivia stepped outside, apron still tied, as the convoy crested the rise. 20 Harleys in tight formation, chrome glinting like armor under the rising sun. Ethan led, his broad frame cutting a silhouette of unyielding purpose, Noah flanking him with a nod that carried the weight of shared scars. They pulled into the gravel lot, engines cutting off one by one, the sudden silence amplifying the crunch of boots on stone. Riders dismounted, leather creaking, tattoos peeking from sleeves like badges of battles won without glory. Ethan approached first, his blue eyes scanning her face for cracks in the facade. "Olivia, you held the fort." She handed over the bagged cup, her voice low but firm. "The guy from yesterday. Matches what you said about Voss's crew. Serpent Ink, old syndicate mark, right?" He took it, fingers brushing hers in a brief transfer of trust. Sharp eye. This could tie him to the photo. The riders gathered loosely around a picnic table out back, away from prying eyes, the desert wind whispering through the chain-link fence. Noah examined the cup under the light. While others scanned the horizon, ever vigilant, Ethan spread a rough sketch of the land. The old airfield, sacred ground where the club honored fallen like Jake with annual rides, not sales to developers like Harlan Voss. Voss wants it for his empire, bribes the sheriff, threatens families. That hit was meant to break us before we expose him. Olivia leaned against the diner's wall, arms crossed, the sun warming her skin as the group's words wove a tapestry of quiet fury. One rider, a grizzled veteran named Benjamin with a salt and pepper beard, shared a story of a similar stand years back, saving a widow's farm from corrupt hands, not with force, but by uncovering ledgers that spoke louder than shouts. "The oath isn't about the ride," he said, voice gravelly from years of wind and resolve. "It's the promise that keeps us whole." Olivia felt it then, the invisible bond pulling her in, turning a waitress into a sentinel. Her own loss flickered, Lucas's laugh cut short by senseless greed, mirroring Ethan's vow, making her part of the chosen family without a single blood tie. But tension coiled as a dust cloud rose on the highway, a lone black SUV approaching too deliberately. The riders stiffened, hands hovering near pockets, but Ethan raised a palm, peace first, always. The vehicle slowed, window rolling down to reveal a deputy in crisp uniform, badge glinting falsely under the moral sun. "Morning, Ethan. Heard you had company. Everything's square here." Olivia's heart quickened. This was the sheriff's man, Voss's puppet, eyes darting to the bikes like a hawk spotting prey. Ethan stepped forward, casual but unbowed. "Just grabbing coffee, deputy. Folks from out of town, passing through." The lie hung easy, laced with the truth of their purpose. The deputy lingered, gaze sweeping to Olivia, recognition flickering. Had he seen her with the suspicious man? She met his stare, chin lifted, the coffee cup's evidence burning in Ethan's pocket like a hidden flame. "Saw a stranger yesterday," the deputy pressed, voice oily. "Asking questions. Best keep clear of biker trouble." It was a warning, veiled as concern, the corruption's tendrils testing the air. Noah shifted subtly, a wall of loyalty behind Ethan, while Olivia forced a nod, playing the innocent local. The SUV finally pulled away, taillights fading into the heat haze, leaving the group in a charged hush. Ethan exhaled, turning to Olivia. That was close. Voss is tightening the noose. The plan crystallized then. Ride to the airfield's edge, scout for evidence of Voss's tampering, expose the bribes without descending into the shadows they fought. Olivia surprised them all, volunteering her sedan as backup. I know these back roads, grew up dodging sandstorms here. It was her oath now, unspoken but binding, a redemption arc bending toward justice. As the convoy reformed, engines igniting like renewed vows, the desert stretched before them, vast, unforgiving but yielding to those who honored their word. Ethan glanced at Olivia, mounting a spare bike behind Noah, her grip tentative on the handles, but eyes alight with purpose. The photo's threat loomed, but so did the light of loyalty, illuminating paths through ethical fog. They rode out, a thunder of 20 souls against the greed, the wind carrying whispers of promises that refused to die. Little did they know, the shadows held more than one serpent, and the true test of family awaited in the heart of the storm. The dust plume from the convoy trailed like a serpent's tail across the cracked earth, the 20 Harleys carving a path toward the old airfield's perimeter. Ethan Hale gripped the throttle, the engine's pulse syncing with his heartbeat, a steady rhythm against the chaos brewing in his mind. The sun climbed mercilessly, turning the desert into a furnace that baked the leather of his vest and drew sweat along the scar on his jaw. Behind him, Noah rode point on the flank, his limp forgotten in the saddle's embrace, while Olivia clung to the spare bike's handles, her knuckles white but her posture unyielding. The wind whipped her hair free from its ponytail, carrying the sharp tang of sage and sun-baked soil. A sensory reminder that this ride wasn't just motion, it was a march toward truth, the kind that could shatter illusions or forge unbreakable alliances. The airfield loomed ahead, a ghost of rusted hangars and faded runways, sacred ground where the Iron Oath gathered each year to honor the fallen. Concrete slabs cracked like old promises, weeds clawing through the fissures as if nature itself rebelled against neglect. Ethan signaled a halt at the fence line, engines idling down to a growl that faded into the vast quiet. The riders dismounted in practiced silence, boots crunching gravel, eyes scanning for signs of intrusion. Olivia swung off her bike, legs shaky from the unfamiliar roar, but her resolve steady as the horizon. She'd navigated these back roads as a kid, dodging her father's temper with Lucas by her side, but this felt different, deeper, like stepping into the echo of her brother's unfinished fight against injustice. "Spread out," Ethan murmured, his voice low as he handed Noah the bagged coffee cup from Olivia. "Look for tracks, anything off. Voss's crew might have been here already." The group fanned into pairs, moving like shadows across the perimeter. Benjamin with a younger rider named Ryan, their steps measured, hands empty, but senses alert. No guns. The oath's code was clear. Justice through exposure, not escalation, a moral compass etched in the vows they'd all sworn under starlit skies. Ethan paired with Olivia, leading her toward a cluster of overgrown brush near the eastern edge, the coordinates from the photo pinpointing this very spot. The air hummed with tension, the faint buzz of insects underscoring the psychological weight. One wrong move, and the shadows could swallow them whole. As they pushed through the thorns, Olivia's breath caught at the sight, a fresh set of tire tracks marring the dirt, wide and aggressive, leading to a makeshift gate pried open with bolt cutters. "They've been here," she whispered, crouching to trace the imprints, her fingers brushing soil still damp from overnight dew. Ethan's jaw tightened, blue eyes narrowing as he spotted a discarded clipboard half buried in the weeds, survey forms stamped with Voss Development Corp. Notes scrawled about eminent domain clearance. But deeper in, glinting under a beam of sunlight piercing the hangar roof, lay something more damning. A small recorder, its tape exposed, capturing voices, a deputy laughing about squashing the biker pests, and Voss's clipped tone promising payoffs to silence dissent. Ethan's hand hovered, then snatched it up, the plastic cool against his palm. This is it, proof they rigged the land grab, bribed officials to bury our rights. Olivia's heart pounded, a mix of triumph and dread washing over her. The recorder felt like a grenade in her pocket, its contents a poetic justice against the corruption that had stolen her brother. Greed disguised as progress, leaving families fractured. But as they straightened, a low rumble echoed from the distance. Not bikes, but the growl of engines approaching from the highway side. The riders converged silently, signals flashing like unspoken oaths. Through binoculars borrowed from Benjamin, Ethan spotted two black SUVs, the same make as the deputies, kicking up dust toward the fence. Voss's enforcers, Noah hissed, his face etched with the wariness of old foxholes. They must have trailed us from the diner. The group melted into cover. Hangars, scrub, the skeleton of an old control tower, their breaths shallow, the desert's heat amplifying every rustle. Olivia pressed against a rusted wall, the metal scorching her back, her mind racing through ethical storms, run and hide or stand and record their trespass. Ethan's gaze met hers across the gap, a nod sealing the decision. Loyalty demanded exposure, not retreat. Ryan, quick on his feet, slipped forward with a club-issued camera, snapping shots as the SUVs halted, 4 men piling out, hardened types with serpent tattoos snaking up their necks, tools in hand to sabotage the site further. One barked orders, voice carrying on the wind. "Finish the markers. Boss wants this locked by nightfall." But as they advanced, Ethan stepped from shadow, not with aggression but authority. The recorder raised like a shield. "This ends here. We've got your bribes on tape." Voss's voice clear as day. "Walk away, or we ride this straight to every honest ear in the county." The men froze, hands twitching toward hips, but the Oath Riders emerged in a wall, 20 strong, unyielding, their presence a thunder without roar. Noah flanked Ethan, Olivia at his side, her chin high, the waitress who'd ignited this stand, now its quiet pillar. Tension crackled like dry lightning, the air thick with the scent of impending rain and moral reckoning. The lead enforcer sneered, eyes flicking to the camera. "You bikers think you're heroes. This land's ours." But doubt flickered. They were thugs, not warriors, bound by paychecks, not promises. Ethan held firm, his voice steady as the vow to Jake. "We're the ones who keep words unbroken. Your boss's greed stops today." A standoff stretched, seconds into eternity, until the enforcer spat on the ground and signaled retreat. The SUVs peeled out, leaving dust devils in their wake, the threat retreating but not vanquished. As the group exhaled, Benjamin clapped Ryan's back, the camera's images a digital talisman. Olivia felt the shift. A family chosen in the crucible, her redemption intertwined with theirs. Ethan turned to her, gratitude in his eyes. "You didn't just save my family, you're saving the oath itself." The sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the airfield, illuminating paths forward. But whispers of deeper shadows lingered. Voss wouldn't yield easily, and the true test of loyalty loomed, a storm of conscience and sacrifice on the horizon. They mounted up, the convoy's roar a defiant song, carrying evidence that promises, once lit, burned through the dark. If this tale of quiet courage is stirring something in you, drop a like below. It helps these stories of honor reach more hearts in need of light. The convoy's engines faded into a distant hum as Ethan Hale led the way back toward the canyon's hidden barn. The airfield's evidence clutched like a sacred relic in his saddlebag. The sun hung low now, a fiery orb bleeding orange across the desert floor. casting elongated shadows that danced like wary spectres over the sagebrush. Dust from the retreat still lingered in the air, a gritty veil that coated Olivia's throat as she rode pillion behind Noah, her arms wrapped around his waist for balance more than fear. The vibration of the Harley seeped into her bones, syncing with the rhythm of her thoughts, a whirlwind of what-ifs and the unyielding pull of the choice she'd made. The recorder's voices echoed in her mind. Voss's cold calculations, the deputy's mocking compliance, proof that corruption wore a badge as easily as a serpent tattoo. But victory felt fragile, like a promise whispered in the wind, ready to scatter if not guarded fiercely. They arrived as twilight deepened the canyon's folds into inky blues, the barn's silhouette rising like a sentinel against the fading light. Riders dismounted in a quiet choreography, the scent of cooling metal and pine sap mingling with the faint smoke from a rekindled fire pit. Ethan secured the bikes, his movements deliberate, the scar on his jaw catching the firelight as he gathered the group inside. Olivia followed, her boots echoing on the wooden floor, the space feeling less like a hideout and more like a council chamber where oaths were renewed. Noah spread the photos and recorder on the scarred table, the glow of a lantern illuminating the damning details, timestamps matching recent inspections. Voss's signature looped like a noose on forged documents. Benjamin leaned in, his salt and pepper beard brushing the wood as he traced a finger over the images. This ties the sheriff's office straight to the bribes, but leaking it wrong could twist back on us, make the oath look like the villains. Ethan nodded, blue eyes reflecting the flame's flicker, his mind replaying the standoff's tension, the enforcers' twitching hands, the ethical tightrope they'd walked without crossing into retaliation. The vow to Jake burned fresh. Protect without becoming the monster you fight. Sarah's face flashed in his thoughts, her quiet strength back at the safe house with the kids, oblivious to how close the shadows had crept. "We don't rush," he said, voice gravel steady. "Olivia, your call on the diner, anyone tail you after we left?" She shook her head, but the memory of the deputy's probing gaze at the airfield lingered, a psychological thorn. Her own past surfaced unbidden, Lucas's final days, tangled in a web of local greed that ended in a senseless clash, leaving her to piece together a life from fragments. This fight mirrored it, but with allies, chosen kin who saw her not as a bystander, but a vital thread in the tapestry of honor. As the group debated routes to an honest judge in the next county over, a soft crackle broke the murmur. A radio left on the table, tuned to local frequencies. Static hissed, then a voice cut through, the sheriff himself, clipped and urgent, coordinating with Voss's men. "Double the watch on the airfield. Those bikers have something. Find it, bury it." The words hung like smoke, the corruption's reach exposed in real time. Olivia's pulse quickened. This wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a live wire, sparking dilemmas of conscience. Expose it now, risk Voss striking first at the safe house, or hold, build an ironclad case that honored the oath's moral core. Ryan, the young rider with quick hands, pocketed the radio, his face paling under the lantern's harsh glow. "They're closing in. We ride tonight, or Sarah's family pays the price." Ethan's fist clenched on the table's edge, the wood groaning under the pressure, but he exhaled slowly, drawing on the war's hard lessons. Impulse led to graves, patience to justice. "We split. Half stay to guard the evidence, the rest escort me to the judge. Olivia, Noah, you with me?" She met his gaze, the fire's warmth doing little to chase the chill of decision. Volunteering meant leaving the diner's familiarity, stepping deeper into the storm, but redemption's call was louder than fear. "I'm in, for the promise that pulled me here." The group murmured approval, hands clasping in silent pacts, the barn filling with the quiet power of loyalty that needed no fanfare. Benjamin led the stay-behinds, his stories of past stands, a nurse's quiet testimony that toppled a crooked clinic, reminding them that truth's victories were poetic, not brutal. Outside, the night sky unfurled like a vast canvas, stars pricking through the velvet dark as the smaller convoy, 8 riders strong, formed up. Olivia mounted behind Noah again, the engines roar a defiant lullaby against the uncertainty. Ethan led, the recorder secured in a waterproof pouch, his thoughts on Sarah, her kind eyes at that family picnic captured in the photo, the unbreakable unit he'd sworn to shield. The road twisted through canyons, headlights carving tunnels in the blackness, the wind carrying whispers of sage and distant thunder. Halfway, a lone figure on a ridge caught their attention, a scout, serpent ink, visible even in the moonlight, signaling back to unseen eyes. Ethan's signal halted the group in a pull-off, engines off, the sudden silence amplifying heartbeats and the rustle of night creatures. "We can't outrun this forever," Noah whispered, his limp evident as he dismounted to scan the terrain. Olivia's mind raced, ethical fog thickening. Confront the scout, risk escalation, or slip away, preserving the high ground of integrity. She spotted a narrow trail she'd known from childhood hikes with Lucas, a forgotten path veering into arroyos that could loop them clear. "This way," she urged, voice steady. "It dodges the ridge, gets us to the county line unseen." Ethan trusted her instinct, the group following as they pushed the bikes silently, gravel shifting under tires like hushed confessions. The scout's flashlight swept the main road below, missing their detour by inches, the close call a reminder of corruption's blind spots. Greed saw threats, but honor found the unseen paths. By moon's zenith, they emerged onto a secondary highway, the judge's modest home a beacon of flickering porchlight ahead. Ethan approached alone first, the recorder in hand, his knock echoing like a summons to conscience. The judge, an older man named Samuel, with wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for unyielding fairness, listened in the lamplit study, the air thick with pipe tobacco and the weight of unfolding truth. "This could crack Voss wide open," Samuel said, voice measured, eyes sharp behind the lenses. "But it'll stir the hive. You sure your people's ready?" Ethan thought of Olivia's steady hand at the diner, Noah's unwavering flank, the oath's collective scars, a family forged not by blood, but by promises that withstood the grind of time. As dawn's first blush touched the horizon, painting the study in soft golds, Samuel agreed to convene an emergency hearing, the evidence sealed under his watch. Outside, the convoy reformed, exhaustion etching lines on faces, but resolve burning brighter. Olivia felt the shift within, a waitress no more, but a guardian in the chosen fold. Her brother's shadow lifted by the light of this stand, yet as they rode back toward the barn, a radio crackle warned of Voss's retaliation brewing, the moral tempest far from quelled. The road ahead promised deeper sacrifices, tests of loyalty that would bind or break, but in the quiet dawn, the oath endured, a silent force against the gathering dark. The canyon's mouth spat them out onto the open highway as the first rays of dawn clawed at the eastern sky, turning the asphalt into a ribbon of molten silver. Ethan Hale throttled down, the Harley's engine a subdued purr now, conserving fuel and fury for the road ahead. The air nipped crisp with the promise of cooler hours, carrying the faint, metallic tang of dew on sagebrush and the underlying grit of desert dust that never fully settled. Behind him, Noah rode steady, Olivia's presence on the pillion a quiet anchor, her arms looser now around his waist after the night's detour. The recorder's weight in Ethan's saddlebag felt like a heartbeat, pulsing with the voices that could topple Voss's empire. Bribes, threats, the sheriff's complicit laughter. But triumph was a fragile alloy, tempered by the radio's warning crackle, retaliation brewing, shadows lengthening toward the barn and the safe house where Sarah and the kids waited. The convoy, 8 riders slimmed to a tight phalanx wove through sparse traffic, semis looming like indifferent giants on the horizon. Olivia's thoughts churned with the night's ethical detours, the scout's flashlight slicing the dark, the judge's measured nod sealing their gamble. Samuel's study had smelled of aged books and resolve, his wire-rimmed eyes reflecting the lantern's glow as he pored over the evidence. "This hearing's set for noon," he'd said, voice a gravel whisper, "but Voss moves fast. Get your people clear." Her own redemption arc twisted tighter. Lucas's ghost no longer haunted as accusation, but as ally, urging her forward in this chosen family's stand. The wind tugged at her jacket, a sensory rush that grounded her amid the psychological fog. Had they truly outmaneuvered the serpents, or merely delayed the strike? Miles from the barn, a flicker on the rearview snagged Ethan's glance. A black SUV mirroring their path, too purposeful for coincidence. He signaled a pull-off into a dry wash, the group vanishing behind a ridge of boulders that hulked like ancient guardians under the rising sun. Engines off, they dismounted in hushed urgency, boots sinking into loose sand that whispered with each step. Noah crouched low, binoculars to his eyes, the lenses glinting as he tracked the vehicle, Voss's tail, 2 more behind it, closing the noose. Olivia's pulse thrummed, the desert's vast silence amplifying the distant engine whine, a predator's approach. The air thickened with the scent of sun-warmed rock and faint creosote. Her mind flashing to the airfield standoff, the enforcer's retreat born of doubt, not defeat. This was deeper, a test of the oath's core: protect without provocation, expose without becoming the hunted. Ethan gathered them in a tight circle. The recorder passed hand to hand like a talisman, its plastic scarred from the night's jostle. "They know we've got proof. Barnes compromised. Split again. Noah, take Olivia and 3 others to the safe house. Loop wide, draw any followers. I'll lead the rest straight to the hearing. Force Voss's hand publicly." His blue eyes locked on hers, the scar on his jaw a shadowed line in the morning light. Doubt flickered. Sarah's safety hung on this divide. The family photo's innocent smiles, a stark contrast to the brewing storm. Olivia shook her head subtly, her voice cutting the tension like a knife through fog. "I'm no decoy. I started this. Let me ride with you to the courthouse. My word as witness carries local weight." The group murmured, respect rippling through grizzled faces. Benjamin nodded from the flank, his salt and pepper beard catching the breeze. "She's oath now, Ethan, blood or not." The decision settled like dust after a gust, binding them tighter in loyalty's forge. They remounted, splitting the convoy with hand signals that spoke volumes. No words needed in this family of chosen scars. Noah's group veered into the arroyos, engines muffled by the terrain, while Ethan's 5, Olivia now pillion behind Ryan's steady ride, gunned toward the county seat. The highway blurred, wind roaring in her ears, the vibration a counterpoint to her racing thoughts. Ethical tempests swirled. Testifying meant facing Voss's gaze, the man whose greed echoed the fists that took Lucas, but honor demanded the stand. The sun climbed, baking the leather against her skin, sweat tracing paths down her back as the courthouse spire pierced the skyline. A squat building of faded brick, its flag limp in the still air. They arrived as the clock tower chimed 10, parking in the lot's shadowed edge, the Harleys a defiant row amid sedans. Disembarking, Olivia smoothed her jacket, the diner's grease stains a badge of her origins, while Ethan secured the recorder in his vest. The air inside the courthouse hummed with bureaucracy's drone. Clerks shuffling papers, the faint echo of heels on marble, but beneath it, tension coiled like a spring. Samuel met them at the side entrance, his pipe unlit, face etched with urgency. Voss's lawyers are already filing motions to delay. Sheriff's men are posted outside. Keep it clean. Ethan nodded, the vow to Jake a silent mantra, justice poetic, not vengeful. As they filed into the hearing room, wooden benches creaking under their weight, Olivia felt the room's stale air press close, scented with old varnish and anticipation. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder, calling order as Voss entered. Tall, slick in a tailored suit, his eyes cold as polished stone, flanked by deputies whose badges gleamed falsely. He spotted Ethan, a smirk curling his lip, but faltered at Olivia's steady gaze from the witness bench. "This is harassment," Voss's attorney blustered, but Samuel raised a hand. The recorder placed before him like evidence of fractured oaths. "Play it," the judge intoned, and the room filled with a damning tape. Voss's voice, crisp and incriminating, plotting the land grab with bribes that twisted laws into nooses. Gasps rippled through the sparse audience, locals, reporters, the oath's quiet allies, the moral weight crashing like waves on parched shores. Voss's face drained of colour, his empire's facade cracking under the truth's unrelenting light. "Fabrication!" he snarled, but the tape looped undeniable, the serpent's coil tightening around his own neck. Olivia testified next, her voice clear amid the room's hush, recounting the photo's discovery, the suspicious man's probe, the coffee cup's ink tying it all. "This isn't progress," she said, eyes on Voss. "It's greed that breaks families." Ethan watched, pride swelling like the canyon winds, her words a redemption's echo, honoring Lucas as much as Jake. The hearing stretched, objections flying like sparks, but Samuel's ruling loomed. Injunction granted, investigation launched, Voss's operations frozen pending full probe. As they exited into the midday blaze, sunlight flooding the steps like vindication's glow, cheers erupted from gathered supporters. Word had spread, the oath's stand rippling outward. But triumph soured as a deputy approached, voice low. "Voss bolted, slipped your tails heading for the safe house." Ethan's blood iced. The split had been a feint, the real strike aimed at Sarah and the kids. Olivia's hand gripped his arm, resolve hardening. "We ride! Now!" The convoy reformed in a frenzy, engines igniting as one, the roar a vow renewed against the gathering dark. The desert highway stretched, dust devils swirling like omens, the final test of loyalty barreling toward them, a sacrifice that would etch their promises into legend or loss. In the wind's howl, honor rode shotgun, unyielding as the rising sun. The engines screamed like wounded beasts as Ethan's convoy tore through the midday haze, the highway a blurred vein of blacktop slicing the desert's heart. Sunlight hammered down, turning the air into a shimmering furnace that warped the horizon and baked the sweat into salt tracks on Olivia's skin. She rode pillion behind Ryan, her grip iron tight on his vest, the wind's savage lash carrying the acrid bite of exhaust and fear's sharp edge. The safe house, a modest cabin nestled in a fold of red rock canyons, guarded by Grace the nurse and a handful of oath sentries, lay 15 miles ahead. But every mile felt like a gauntlet. Ethan's lead bike cut the front, his broad shoulders a beacon of unbreaking will. The scar on his jaw lost in the blur, but etched deep in his resolve. The radio's static warning replayed in their minds. Voss had slipped the net, his desperation a venomous lash toward the innocent. Behind them, dust clouds billowed like pursuing ghosts, but no tails materialized. The split had bought time, the ethical calculus of division paying off in shadows evaded. Olivia's thoughts raced with the throttle's roar, the courthouse triumph, Voss's crumbling facade under the tape's unyielding truth, her testimony a bridge from waitress to witness. Yet this final surge twisted the knife. Greed's last gasp aimed at the heart of the oath, Sarah and the kids, the family photo's fragile joy now a target in the storm. Lucas's memory surged, not as loss, but fuel. His brother's laugh a whisper urging her to hold the line. The canyon walls closed in, ochre cliffs rising like silent judges, their crevices hiding echoes of past rides where promises were sealed in starlight and sweat. They crested the final rise as the sun peaked, the cabin coming into view. A weathered timber structure ringed by junipers, its porch sagging under the weight of quiet vigilance. Grace stood at the door, her nurse's scrubs dusted with canyon grit, arms crossed over a frame, honed by years of mending the broken. Two oath riders flanked her, eyes sharp as they scanned the approach. Ethan killed his engine first, the sudden silence amplifying the distant hum of an approaching vehicle, not theirs. "Voss," he growled, dismounting in a fluid motion, the recorder still a weight in his vest, like an unbroken vow. Olivia swung off, legs numb, but steps sure, the group's cohesion a living shield as they fanned out, boots grinding gravel into whispers. The black SUV crested the opposite ridge, Voss at the wheel, his tailored suit rumpled, face twisted in the fury of a cornered predator. He skidded to a halt 50 yards out, door slamming as he emerged alone, desperate, unhinged, a pistol glinting in his hand but held low, more threat than intent. The air thickened with the scent of overheated rubber and tension's metallic tang, the canyon's echo chamber amplifying his shout. "Hail! You think your little tape ends this? Give it up, and your family's walks away clean." Sarah appeared at the cabin window, kids peeking behind her, their wide eyes a punch to Ethan's gut, the photo's innocence weaponized in the light of day. Ethan stepped forward, palms open, the oath riders a wall of leather and loyalty at his back. Noah and Benjamin positioned subtly, blocking escape paths without aggression, while Olivia flanked Ethan, her presence a quiet force, the coffee cup's clue her unspoken badge. "It's over." "Voss!" Ethan called, voice steady as canyon stone, carrying the weight of Jake's foxhole promise. "The judge has the evidence. Bribes, threats, your voice sealing the noose. Drop the gun. Face it like a man, not a shadow." The words hung poetic, a moral gauntlet thrown, justice's light piercing the corruption's veil. Voss's eyes darted, sweat beading on his brow, the pistol trembling as deputies' sirens wailed faintly from the highway. Samuel's doing, the hearing's ripple summoning honest badges at last. Olivia's heart thundered, ethical storm breaking. This man embodied the greed that shattered her world. Lucas's end in a haze of senseless power plays, but the oath demanded integrity, not vengeance. A stand that redeemed without mirroring the fall. "You targeted a family for land," she said, voice clear across the gap, cutting deeper than any shout. "But promises outlast empires. Yours broke, ours hold." Voss faltered, the pistol dipping as realization dawned. The tape's exposure had stripped his armor, leaving a hollow shell. Grace emerged from the cabin, her calm authority a counterpoint, phone in hand already connecting to the arriving law. "It's done," she said softly to Sarah inside, the kids' faces easing from terror to tentative relief. The sirens swelled, 2 county cruisers rounding the bend, lights flashing like beacons of delayed truth. Voss's shoulders slumped, the gun clattering to the dust as he raised his hands, the serpent of his ambition uncoiling in defeat. Deputies, ones untouched by his bribes, cuffed him swiftly, their movements efficient, the air filling with the crackle of radios and the faint cleansing scent of impending rain. Ethan watched, unyielding but untouched by triumph's poison, turning to embrace Sarah as she rushed out, kids tumbling into his arms, the family photo's promise restored, whole in the canyon's embrace. Olivia stood apart a moment, then joined the circle, Noah's nod pulling her into the fold, chosen kin, scars shared without a drop of blood. As Voss was led away, the canyon exhaled, wind stirring the junipers into a soft applause. Ethan gathered the group by the porch, the sun dipping toward evening golds, casting long shadows that no longer threatened. "We kept the oath," he said, voice low, eyes meeting each face, Olivia's steady gaze. Grace's quiet smile, the kids' laughter bubbling free. Not for glory, but for the ones who can't ride alone. Benjamin raised a water flask in toast, stories murmuring of rides past and futures forged. Olivia felt the weight lift, her brother's shadow merging with the light, redemption not in erasure but in standing firm. The diner's spark, now a flame that warmed the chosen family. Twilight settled like a benediction, stars pricking the sky as the convoy prepared one last ride, not to flee, but to return. The airfield secured, Voss's empire dismantled by truth's unrelenting hand. Sarah squeezed Olivia's hand, a silent vow exchanged. Ethan mounted up, the engines hum a lullaby of endurance, leading them into the cooling night. Promises survived, loyalty's legacy etched in the desert's vast scroll, honor as the truest road, winding eternal. If this journey of unbreakable bonds has touched your soul, thank you for riding along. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We'll keep sharing these tales of quiet heroism, one chapter at a time.